Well, so we just read the story of Grimm brothers, The Devil and His Grandmother. You want to give a synopsis and then we'll
Mhm.
talk about the story?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's three soldiers and they're unhappy with their time in service.
They weren't paid enough.
Yeah, they weren't paid enough and yeah, it just wasn't a good job for them. So they decide to desert their military, but of course the punishment is death if they're caught. But they decide to do so anyways, so they I think one night, I think they go where guards aren't posted, or
They hide in a cornfield.
yeah, yeah, they hide and they spent 2 days and uh 2 days and nights, I think, in a cornfield. Um, and yeah, they're not doing well. They're hungry and tired, and they
Yeah,
start
the
thinking that they're
so
going to die.
the other
Yeah,
soldiers are around the cornfield and they had thought
yeah.
they would just leave after a few hours, but for some
Mm-hmm.
reason they're hanging out there. That's why they can't
Mm-hmm.
leave the cornfield.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they think they're going to die. Um, but on the last day, a dragon flies overhead and it notices them and stops and kind of asks them what they're doing in the field. And they explain that they're trying to leave the military, but that it seems kind of hopeless now for them. Um, so the dragon, I think, reveals himself to be the devil and tells them that he could get them out of their predicament if they agree to serve him for 7 years. And they think they have no other choice at that moment. So they readily agree, and he picks them up with his talents and flies off over the soldiers and far, far away. And when they land, the devil gives them a whip and tells them that the whip will can produce gold coins and that they'll be very wealthy and that after the 7 years, if they can't solve a riddle that he gives them, that they're going to be condemned to hell. So they fly away, and in those years, they get very wealthy from the gold that comes out of the whip, and they enjoy good food, clothing, and luxuries. Um,
They
but
travel
and
the
they don't,
world, but they're
yeah,
not wicked. They don't do
yes.
wicked things.
Yeah, and once it's getting close to the seventh year, they start two of the soldiers start becoming very anxious. Well, they're lords now, but yeah, it's there's lord soldiers. They start becoming very anxious and hopeless about solving that riddle. But the third one is more optimistic and tells them not to worry, that they'll be fine. And so the seventh year approaches, and um, yeah, the other two lords, they feel they're condemned and that there's nothing to resolve their situation. But um, and they're like in a road, I think,
In a field, I
in
think.
a field, and they see an old woman walking by, and she notices them and asks them why they're so downcast. And they tell her that there's really no point in telling her because there will be no solution. But the old lady insists, and I think the third one tells her like what happened, and that the seventh year is there or approaching, and that they're
Not yet,
trying to
but yeah, it's
solve
getting
the
close.
riddle. So the old woman tells them that she knows of a in further down in the forest that there's a rock that resembles a house, and if they go in that house that they will find the help they need. Um, and the other two soldiers are doubtful and they kind of tell her that that's not going to do anything. But the third one is still, um, yeah, more hopeful. And he goes down into the forest and finds the house. And when he enters that rock house, there's an even older lady in there. And the old lady asks him like who he is and what he's doing. And he explains to her all the events leading up to him going into the house. And the old lady tells them that she's the devil's grandmother and that if she hides him and as long as he stays still and quiet, he can overhear the conversation with her grandson and
Yeah.
find out more clues about what the riddle will be to save them all.
Yeah, and he hides underneath a stone that's covering the cellar when
Mhm.
when he listens later.
She hides him, and in that time, she prepares a nice dinner for her devil grandson, and she prepares like a feast and everything he likes. And when he comes, she starts to ask him about his day and if he had obtained any souls. And the devil tells her that no, it wasn't a good day so far, but that he's really looking forward to getting the souls of those three soldiers because he's confident they won't solve the riddle. And she asks him more questions about what the riddle is, and he says that he'll share it. And the riddle is that in the Great North Sea, there is a dead dogfish. That will be the roast dinner.
Roast meat,
Uh, yeah, roast meat. A whale rib. That will be the fork, I think, or the
silver spoon,
spoon. And then horse's hoof. That will be the cup.
yeah,
Um,
wine glass.
and yeah, then he like goes to sleep or something later when it's
Yeah.
over. At um, and once that happens, the grandmother takes the soldier out of the hiding place and asks him if he was paying close attention to what they had discussed. And he did, and he escapes the dwelling and
Through a different entrance through the
mhm.
window.
And he goes to his friends and tells tells them that there's no need to fear and that he knows the riddle and he tells it to them. And upon hearing that, the friends are hopeful and happy again. Um, so once the seventh year arrives, they go to a field, I believe, or somewhere to meet
I
with the
think so.
devil. And the devil comes and tells them that he's here to take them all to hell.
He's
Um,
gonna give them a meal in hell.
mhm. And he asks them what the riddle was, and then the first lord or soldier tells them and says that in the North Sea there will be a dead dogfish. And upon hearing that, the devil is surprised. Um, and then it leads to the second soldier saying uh, the second part of the riddle that a whale's rib will be the silver spoon. And the devil is getting angry hearing that. And then the third soldier says that a horse's hoof will be the wine cup. And when he hears that, the devil lets out a scream and flies away. And the soldiers live happily ever after, uh, whipping up more coins with the whip and living nice lives until
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah, what do you think of that? We both said we like this story in particular for some reason. I think partially because it's humorous. Uh, it's unexpected. Uh,
Mhm.
it sort of humanizes the devil, even though
Mhm.
ironically he also takes the shape of a dragon in this story. He shapeshifts. Well, what did you think of this story?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was yeah, part of the long list of stories we found of like meeting the devil, but it was still unique in some ways. Um,
Also, besides like humanizing the devil.
uh, well, yeah, just having a grandmother involved, kind of made it seem like a grandmother kind of helping people with because of her grandson's antics and kind of
Yeah.
trying to protect people from that.
Yeah, you would expect the devil's grandmother to be bad, but he's not. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like in real life, maybe. Like probably few evil men's grandmothers are really evil. You would expect
Mm.
them, and they probably usually are still kind of kind.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like she knows he's a handful and she'll just try to help when she can.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah. And it is funny how when he comes home for his meal, it's like, oh, how was your day? Well, how many souls did you harvest today? Like, it's not been such a good day, not so many, but at least there's these three guys that I'm gonna get. Pretty
yeah.
confident gonna get them. I'm gonna own their souls and torture them for
Yeah.
the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
So, not all is lost.
Yeah. So I feel like it kind of emphasized more the trickster aspect of the devil rather than like the really like like evil side or something.
Hmm.
Uh,
What do you mean the trickster side? Like, 'cause tricksters like to cause chaos and strife. I mean, but he's
yeah.
more like trying to possess their souls. He's not causing anything. He does give them unlimited wealth, which could be an opportunity for them to sort of trip themselves up. But what do you mean, a trickster figure?
Mm,
Are you just saying that he is not like pure evil, malice and powerful evil, like he could be otherwise?
well, yeah, like of course he's not good, but it's not like wanting to cause like immediate like harm or I don't know, like
Well,
yeah,
the devil is often presented as someone who presents you with choices, right? Like, and that goes
yeah,
along with the theme of having free will and choosing between good and evil. Like,
yeah, and
he'll
like
give you
on
like choices, right? Like, he'll tempt
yeah,
you and things. But I mean, he
yeah,
does that
and
in this
like
story.
yeah, and he's like providing loopholes even though he thinks they won't be able to get through them, but there's
Yeah,
like
I noticed that
loopholes to get
too.
out. Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Um,
I mean, I thought that this story presents a lawful devil in a way, like it's a devil more contained by other forces. Like, for instance, he has a
mhm,
grandmother, uh, and the grandmother is not bad, and that was presented uh, as part of uh, an option by another being, the old woman that they first encountered
mhm,
that was actually good, who's like a representation of God or something, or an
mhm,
angel, a good helper.
mhm,
And yeah, he gives them a contract and he gives them a way out of the contract. So yeah, he's a fair devil in a way. Although
mhm,
yes, he does try to trick them, but in the end, like their suffering and their faith. So the suffering of the two brothers and the faith of the one soldier, sorry, not brothers, but soldier, get and the sort of daring and perseverance and courage,
mhm,
the virtue, in other words, get them
mhm,
out of that impossible riddle that he
mhm.
tried to give them as like their slick, like Manhattan, high powered attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, or prosecutor or whatever. One thing I noticed structurally was that so um, men and women. Uh, the king doesn't pay them enough. The devil seems like a man, and he gives them temptation and tries to condemn them to hell after saving their lives. But the old woman, the good helper, and the devil's grandmother are both women, and those are the ones that help to save them. Another thing, interesting little detail is that so the story says that the first old woman tells them to go into the forest to find a fallen rock that resembles a house. By fallen rock, I wonder if that was somehow like a meteorite or something. And I was thinking of how in Islam there is this meteor. I might be using the wrong term, but basically a rock from space that fell into the desert that was later that fell into the desert pre-Islam that was later incorporated into Islam. Lots of the religions have these types of things, kind of interesting history. But yeah, that's considered divine in some way, right? It fell from the heavens. Uh, and I wondered if this was a little bit like that. And it's interesting that the devil's grandmother lives there and it resembles a house. Is that like a a castle from in way high in the sky, like Jack and the Beanstalk's thing or something? But anyway, that's an interesting detail. But structurally, overall, with the story, it's like so it wasn't to their advantage to stay and be soldiers, so they tried to get out of being soldiers, but they were about to die. So the devil gives them another option, and they end up doing something that's parallel in some ways to being soldiers. He gives them an implementation of violence, a whip that gives them money, which is kind of what soldiers can do, especially like maybe sometimes in olden times with the sort of, pillaging type of soldiery where, you get paid by taking stuff from civilians or in addition that's your additional pay or whatever. And it mentions they go around the world using their whip and getting money. So in a way there's like a parallel there to like what they would have done as soldiers anyway. But it mentions that they do not do anything wicked. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Yeah, I was wondering about that. There was like an implication of what they might have been doing, but
well, obviously, I mean,
yeah.
they're these lords traveling around, like living on the devil's dime, being able to create money at the crack of a whip. I mean, they could do whatever they want to do, right? I mean, they could have subjugated people, or in the especially in the Christian worldview, uh, you know, uh, done a lot of lascivious kinds of sinful acts with the dames and the women of the night and whatnot. But but what I thought was interesting about that was that so the devil is legalistic, and so he tries to ensnare them with laws, but uh, they end up going free through, like I said, virtue, effort, faith. But it's the story also points out that they never did anything wrong. So I wonder if, yeah, there's overall like a moral kind of, uh, I don't know, overall moral theme there in that they still never did anything wrong. Although they did, you might argue they did try to get out of their duty, but you could also argue that the king did not do his duty by paying them enough.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts about this story?
Mhm. No, just thinking that pretty much all of the outcome was just the work of one of the soldiers. The other two didn't really do much.
Well, he was the one
Um,
with virtue and with faith.
yeah,
You know, he was the one that had strength,
uh,
that had courage, that was willing to risk, that wasn't just falling apart, you know.
yeah,
I was reminded yesterday reading Rousseau that virtue means strength. So, you know, he talks about even how there's no happiness without courage. But anyway, that's Rousseau. That's not necessarily in this story. But yeah. But yeah, that was my interpretation of that. But what do you think?
oh yeah, sounds makes sense.
Mm, yeah. Anyway, yeah, enjoyable story. Like I think that's one of my favorite ones so far.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Okay, so maybe we'll try another one next week and
Mm-hmm.
and look at parallels and things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you.